Welcome back to another episode of the Web3 Byte podcast, the podcast where we jam to the latest beat in the decentralized world and chat with some of the brilliant minds in the Web3 industry. I'm your host, Olabisi, and today I'm thrilled to be joined by Matt, CEO and CTO of Splinterlands. Matt first started learning computer programming at 10 years old, driven by a passion for creating his own video game. After earning a degree in mathematics and computer science from Brandeis University in 2005, he gained extensive professional experience in game design and programming over the next decade. Everything changed in 2017 when Matt discovered decentralized, programmable digital assets and recognized their potential for transforming digital gaming. Motivated by this technology, Matt launched the blockchain-based digital card game Splinterlands in 2018, which was originally called Steam Monsters. As the CEO and CTO of Splinterlands today, Matt draws on his lifelong love of gaming and technical expertise in blockchain to lead the development of an innovative platform at the intersection of these fields. With over a decade of professional experience in game design and blockchain technology, Matt is a pioneer in exploring what the future of decentralized gaming can look like. I'm really excited to dive into Matt's experience and insights on the show today. Hi, Matt. It's so great to have you on the show today.
Hey, yeah, it's great to be here. That was a great intro. Thank you for that.
All right. So, how are things going over at Splinterland?
I mean, things are going great. It was a difficult year or, year and a half or so for the crypto industry in general. But I think things are looking back up as they typically do with its cyclical nature. And Splinterlands has been just heads down building this entire time. We have, a ton of great new features and things. And so we're really looking forward to kind of bringing that to, an even bigger audience over time as more and more people come into the blockchain and Web3 space.
Right, awesome. So, before we dive into today's conversation, I would love to hear the story of how you first got into gaming. I mean, what games were you passionate about growing up, and how did that spark your interest in game development?
Yeah, I mean, I was trying to remember all the different games. I started with the original Nintendo that when that came out. So I'm dating myself a little bit here, and very quickly, the original Nintendo was the only gaming console I had, and immediately went into computer games after that. The old games like the ones from Westwood and even the original Civilization. But then outside of digital gaming, I was also very into Magic the Gathering in like the mid 1990s. And I guess as I was playing these games, I also always wanted to make my own. I always had different ideas of how I thought the game that I played should work. And so I picked up a few basic programming book when I was around 10 and tried to start learning how to, make my own games.
Right, awesome. That was a great backstory. So, Matt, what inspired you to make the leap into blockchain technology and how it could transform gaming? Was there a particular moment, like an aha moment, where you saw its potential?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely in 2017 with things like CryptoKitties, which was one of the first like NFT games. It was, hardly really a game, but the first NFT projects sort of on the Ethereum blockchain at the time. And when I saw that, that was like the aha moment because, like I said, I was very into games like Magic the Gathering where, you buy cards and you own them. And I really liked trading them and selling them and, buying them from card shops and on eBay and everything. And that's when I realized like that whole economic aspect could sort of be done in the digital space through NFTs and smart contracts.
Awesome. So as a follow-up question, would you say blockchain gaming has improved from when you first ventured into it and what we currently have in the gaming space?
Well, of course. I mean, it was hard. Like I said, hardly even a game. At that point, it was just like a very early exploration into what you could even do, and it was extremely clunky and difficult to use on Ethereum back then. So it's come a long way. But that being said, it's still like super super early, and has a really long way to go.
All right. So, for those less familiar, can you explain for our audience who are not familiar with how the gaming industry works, especially blockchain gaming? Can you explain how blockchain technology can impact gaming in ways that were not possible before?
Yeah, it's something I think about a lot because a lot of people just say, talk about it's just a new fad or whatever, and or just it's just a scam or any of these things. But I personally, uh, have found great benefit from it, and not just through Splinterlands, but through the whole concept of games. Because when I played Magic the Gathering as a kid, I bought all these cards and I still have a lot of them, and they're valuable collector's items now. So I participated in the value of that ecosystem. Like I bought and sold cards on eBay, and all that money doesn't go to the company that makes Magic the Gathering, right? That money just goes to other players, people who bought cards from the company, and then now they're reselling them on eBay. So it really occurred to me that like there was so much money and value in this ecosystem that didn't just go to the company that made the game. And then as I transitioned to digital games, Hearthstone is probably, the closest analog to Magic the Gathering, but really any digital game. In that instance, all of the money, 100% of it goes straight from the players to the gaming company, and the players don't get any value out of it other than the entertainment of playing the game. And that was very obvious to me. So I have this big collection of Magic cards that I see, and I see the value in that, and then I notice that I'm playing all these digital games, and I have fun for a while, and I stop playing them eventually, and I get no value out of it. So that was sort of the aha moment with CryptoKitties and everything, of what blockchain technology allows. It allows players to own assets just like they would if they bought physical game cards in a store, and then through secondary markets they can sell those assets, and the players can really participate in the value creation of games alongside the company. So it's similar to Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies in general, how they democratize access to money and value. The NFTs and blockchain democratizes the access to value in gaming. So that's the biggest like core thing, in my opinion, that blockchain technology brings.
Right, awesome. So, let's talk about your company, Splinterlands. Can you walk us through the origins and development process behind Splinterlands, and what were some of the biggest challenges in building a blockchain-based digital card game?
Yeah, well, so when I had this sort of aha moment, as you put it, in 2017, I've been a game developer professionally for a while at that point. So I immediately thought, well, I should make a trading card game that uses blockchain technology. So I joined up with my business partner, who goes by Agrode, and we just went ahead and kind of like designed out how we thought the game would work, and we just put up a simple website at the time, and we sold these packs of cards. There was no game at the time. We sort of promised that we were planning to make a game, but you could buy the cards, ahead of time, sort of like a, early crowdfunding of it. And, those card packs sold out in the summer of 2018. And then we were both like, all right, well, I guess we have to, kind of quit our jobs and make a game now. So, we did that, and it was difficult. Also, that was again an earlier crypto bear market that we were going through. But yeah, as far as the biggest challenges, and these are things we're still facing, is just rethinking how games work in the blockchain space. So we started out with very like a digital free-to-play game mindset, because that's how games have been for a long time, this free-to-play model. But the model with blockchain, where players own assets and there's secondary markets for assets, works very, very differently. And it works much more similarly to physical games like Magic or Pokemon. So just having that different mindset when you're building the game is I think one of the biggest challenges that we still face.
Okay. You already explained the challenges, right? So let's talk about the benefits. For this time, the biggest benefits, actually. So, what are some of the biggest benefits blockchain technology enables for gamers and game developers compared to traditional gaming models? I mean, in terms of decentralized ownership, provable scarcity, etc.
Yeah, so a lot of games talk about, like you said, decentralized ownership, provable scarcity, all these things. I think it's hard for players to really understand what those mean. But it's sort of what I talked about earlier, is that the players get to participate in the value creation. So if a game does really well and becomes popular, typically with typical digital games that weren't blockchain based, players get no benefit from that. I mean, they might like it more and more their friends play it or whatever, but they get no actual value from it. Despite that they're the ones putting value into the games. But with blockchain based games, the players benefit alongside the gaming company. They don't own like stock in the company, but it's sort of a similar result where everyone benefits together. And I think that's super important. And I think that that the whole shift from physical to digital that's been happening over the past 20 or so years has really taken so much value away from the general public and given it to companies that make these digital systems. And blockchain technology is sort of giving it back and sharing it again with players and or users in general. So people who are into gaming and like games, they should be able to benefit and get the value from the games. And I think on top of that, something we haven't really seen yet, but I think we will more in the future, is actual player ownership of games. When games are blockchain based and everything is public, all the smart contracts are public and available, people can fork game products and make their own versions and make changes to it, and it gives consumers more choice versus these kind of very carefully guarded and walled gardens of existing games where they protect their code and their IP very carefully. So it's very difficult for anyone to kind of like make a copy of it and make changes. I think we're going to start to see blockchain games, which are much more public and open, be copied and forked and changed, and then players will go to whatever the best option is.
Awesome. So we've talked about challenges and benefits. Now let's move to use cases, because it's important to also consider some of the use cases in gaming. So in your experience, what are some of the most exciting potential use cases of blockchain in gaming that you think will gain traction? Is it NFT integration, true ownership, or which one?
Yeah, I guess I got a little bit ahead of myself there, because yeah, I mean, NFT integration and true ownership, I mean, they should go hand in hand. That's the kind of idea of that. And I think that's really like the bare minimum of blockchain gaming, and we're seeing that, a lot more now. But like I talked about before, I think the most exciting potential is when we get beyond that and things like DAOs, which are, decentralized autonomous organizations. So where we actually have like community owned games, Bitcoin, obviously there's no company behind it, right? There's no foundation or VCs. It's like completely sort of community, like owned and operated system. There are other blockchain platforms that are like that. Not that many, but I look forward to games that have actually no company behind them in the future. No VCs or anything like that. They're completely community owned games, and they can still operate as a full-fledged business on the blockchain. So these to me are the most exciting things that are just barely starting to happen.
Right. Awesome. So, you've been in the gaming space for a while. For you personally, what have been some of the most important lessons learned or principles that have guided your career in the blockchain and Web3 gaming space? Were there any that came specifically from your experience with Splinterlands?
Yeah, I mean, almost all of it came from my experience with Splinterlands, because that's what I've been working on, for the most part, these past 5.5 years. Um, but yeah, I guess the main thing is you have to, both from a development and coding side and from a game design side, you have to look at it from a very different lens and a very different mindset from traditional gaming. And most people come into the space and they were game developers, making, mobile games or whatever, free to play games. And you come into it with that same mindset, and it doesn't work here. Um, so I try to really, like, over the years, what I've learned is that you have to really kind of rewire how you're thinking about these things. I mean, smart contracts work, how they're built works very differently from how you would build a traditional game or any traditional program. Everything's like public, everything's open source. Security is a whole different type of thing. Everything has to be, deterministically created. So it can't be exploited, things like that. Um, and then just understanding how the game economy works, right? When your assets are having real monetary value and they're tradable, you're going to have, bots that exploit things, or, players that create, thousands of wallets to exploit getting free rewards and all this stuff. So you have to really, design the economy in a way that more matches like a physical thing. And so I guess that mindset shift is, I think, the main lessons I've learned, and I guess like what I would suggest to other people if they want to get into this space.
Right. Awesome. So I think it's safe to say that the gaming space, especially blockchain and Web3, is still evolving, right?
Yeah.
So as the space matures, what excites you most about the future of blockchain gaming in the next, let's say, 3 to 5 years? And what new business models do you expect to emerge?
Yeah, I mean, one of the exciting things, I guess, is I don't even really know what might come out in the next 3 to 5 years or however long. So that's pretty exciting. I feel like the space, digital gaming was pretty well set and well defined for a long time, and we weren't really seeing anything very new or exciting for a while. Um, and I obviously didn't like that. But so now it's super exciting. There's this whole entire new world that we've barely started to explore, and like who knows what's going to happen. But as far as what I do think might emerge, you know, I guess it's not even a business model or genre, but I'm very excited to start seeing, it just become normal a little bit. And I think, eventually we're going to see, more regulatory clarity around the world, which is going to open the gates for more, the larger game companies with more capital get into the space. I expect they might look to acquire, other existing blockchain gaming companies. And it will just kind of become a normal thing. It's just like, the new games that most people are playing just automatically have blockchain integration in them. And that just seems like it's going to hopefully be just like normal and expected, to the point where like people wouldn't even consider playing games that don't have that. Right now, it's still very new. A lot of people think it's a scam or they don't like it. I guess that's normal for any new technology, early in its life cycle. But I'm looking forward to it just becoming standard and like behind the scenes, and most people don't even think about it, but they get the benefits of it, where they own their assets, they participate in the value, and everything is more public and available via smart contracts and things like that.
So, as a follow-up question to that, There's this general consensus, especially on social media, that Web3 is complex and there are loads of complexity surrounding it. Do you think this has affected adoption in the gaming space?
Oh yeah, it's incredibly complex. I mean, I've even relatively recently tried games on different blockchain platforms that I haven't used that much, and it was hard for me. And I have like many years of experience, not only using but building Web3 products. So yeah, I mean, if that's 100%, made it difficult for people and slowed down adoption. But that's part of what excites me, and that's because that's going to go away. It's the same thing. I mean, the internet was very difficult to use, 30, 40 years ago, um, if you could even connect to it. So it's just normal for any new technology. It becomes easier to use over time, and that's again part of what's exciting to me. But it's also part of where the value and the opportunity is, right? So for players who are also interested in getting value out of this whole ecosystem, I mean, you can wait until it's much easier to use and larger companies and more people are getting involved, but you lose out on that opportunity the longer you wait. So for the people, the early adopters like we have now who take the time to understand the complexity and get involved, like I said, they're going to benefit alongside the game companies as things get easier and the floodgates open up for new people to come in.
So, still on mainstream adoption challenges, what are some of the biggest challenges or headwinds still facing blockchain adoption in mainstream gaming? And how has Splinterland dealt with some of those obstacles around accessibility and fun?
Yeah, I mean, so fun is not a challenge. A lot of people say like, crypto and blockchain games aren't fun or as fun as traditional games. I mean, that's not because blockchain like stops games from being fun in any way. I think excuse me. I think, initially when there's any like new technology and new thing that's exciting, there's sort of a bit of a gold rush. And we saw that in 2021, mostly in early 2022, where people realize there's like just tons of money being thrown at this space. So they, a lot of people just throw out kind of crap really quickly in order to try to take advantage of that. And so obviously the quality of those products are going to be worse and it makes the space not look as good. But that's just a natural like thing that happens. We get past it. And as we go forward, we'll see a lot of higher quality products as far as like fun games emerge. And then, another thing is that right now, most of the blockchain games are created by much smaller teams with much fewer resources, right? So of course those games are not going to be to the level of what the larger companies can produce yet. But they will over time. They'll get there. So we also talked about the usability and the difficulty. Those things will go away over time. And Splinterlands specifically, how we address the challenges. I mean, for one, we've built our game on a blockchain called Hive, which very few people have heard of. It's not one of the big ones, the Solana, Ethereum, Polygon, or whatever. And we did that specifically because it is built to give a much more user-friendly, experience for using blockchain. So it just manages, accounts and wallets much better. It allows security to be handled much better as far as, people being able to secure their wallets and not get hacked. And there's many, many different benefits. It doesn't require gas fees, for example, to use, so players don't have to acquire cryptocurrency. So that's one of the ways we've dealt with it. Was we chose, we made a less common choice for the blockchain platform, but ultimately, I think that at some point people aren't going to know or care what blockchain platform the games run on, as long as the games are fun and a good experience and the players get the benefits of the blockchain technology. Just like when you play other games, you don't know or care if they use Amazon Web Services for their servers or Google's or something else. Blockchain's going to sort of fade into the background. And so we kind of embrace that with Splinterlands. We try to build game first. And even the Splinterlands game itself, a lot of blockchain games are just copies of other games. You take a popular existing game, you make a copy of it, so you change things up a little bit, not an exact copy. And then you throw in NFTs and tokens and all those things. Whereas Splinterlands is a pretty unique game concept that I designed well before I knew about blockchain or crypto or any of that stuff. So, we kind of try to focus first and foremost on making a interesting, unique, and fun game that is also easy to use, and easy to get into and secure, and just focus on that with sort of blockchain behind the scenes.
I mean, I'm not a gamer, but the way you just described what Splinterlands is doing in the gaming ecosystem makes me want to go online and check. How do I become a gamer in less than a week? Because I'm sold. I'm sold on what you guys are doing at Splinterlands. So so we've gotten to the part where we tap into your years of experience as a professional gamer. So for most people, especially newbies who love gaming but also want to make money from it, any beginner tips on how to go about it?
Yeah, on how to for like developers or for players.
For players this time.
Yeah. If players want to get into blockchain gaming, there's a myriad of different games available. I'd say jump into them, and then also try to take the time. Like I said, it's still early, and that's where the opportunity is. So I always suggest people to take the time not only to just play the games, but to really like understand how they work, and like kind of what's going on under the hood, and how the different games, are different from each other, how the different blockchain platforms they use are different from each other. And I know I just talked about how like blockchain should be behind the scenes and players don't need to worry about it. But for people who want to get in like now, early on, and really benefit from it as much as possible, if they are willing to take the time to learn and understand, I think they'll be like way ahead of kind of the mainstream adoption when it comes in.
Okay, how about for developers?
Yeah, for developers, start learning how like smart contract development works, right? It's again, like I said, from a programming perspective, the languages are very similar. So if you know existing programming languages, that shouldn't be difficult. But it's actually a mindset of like how you build things and how you structure things. And it's hard to learn from like a book or a course, but without actually doing it. So there's lots of like test nets and cheap and easy ways where you could, publish code and try it out. And I encourage people to just do that, to write some smart contracts on some test net on whatever chain you're interested in, play with them, see how they work, and just start changing your mindset into a different way of coding.
So speaking of mindset, how has your thinking evolved over time around the best way to introduce blockchain mechanics into game design?
Yeah, so that to me comes into, I think of it more like physical games like Magic, Pokemon, trading cards, those type of things, rather than the traditional digital free-to-play games, because it's really very similar to that. When all your assets have value and people can trade them, it's just like owning a physical card. So from a game design perspective, you have to change your mind. Like, free-to-play games always give out lots of free rewards. You can play the game, you can not spend any money, and you can get all this stuff, and that's fine, because there's no value to that stuff. It doesn't matter. They can give away 10 billion, game assets or whatever, and people can't sell them, so it doesn't matter. But once you introduce blockchain mechanics, then all of a sudden you have a real world economy in your game, and then everything that the game gives out, everything that the game produces, has some type of value and affects an overall economy, and that's it's just a very different way of thinking about all of this. I think a better way ultimately, but it's different. So when you introduce blockchain mechanics into your game design, you have to think sort of like scarcity first. So everything you do, everything that players can get, every way that players can move up has to be limited in quantity, just like, Bitcoin has to be limited in quantity for it to be valuable. And that's one of its main selling points. Same thing around everything in a blockchain based game. There's always has to be limited amounts and limited quantities, and players have to compete for it. And that's a lot of what the game is players competing for these limited assets that they can also then gain value from if they're able to win them and beat out other players. So that to me is what the main area of thinking when introducing blockchain mechanics. And as far as what feels sort of like forced, that's when you try to make it like a free to play game. And a lot of these games, try to be free to play games. Even Splinterlands for a long time tried to be that, and it caused a lot of problems. And I think instead of like trying to make it feel like a free to play game, instead we need to let players know that this is not a free to play game. You will need to put money into the ecosystem. And that's not a bad thing. It's actually a good thing, because ultimately you will gain value out of the ecosystem. So it should be worth it for players to put in money and not look for a free to play game experience, because there's this common phrase, which I might not get exactly right, not usually with games, but with other things, like if you're not paying for a product, then you are the product, right? So things like Facebook and Twitter and whatever, like these free services that people use, and they're like, oh, this is so great, I get all this stuff for free. That those companies are making money off of you, your input, your value. They're selling advertising to you. So like if you're not paying for some product, then you are the product, and these companies are in a way exploiting you to make value for themselves. And the same thing goes for games. So if you're playing a game and it's a free to play game and you don't have to put any money into it, then the game is monetizing you, not the other way around. So I try to get players to understand that it's good that Splinterlands and other games are not free to play, and that they have to pay money, put money into the ecosystem for this product, because then they're the ones gaining value out of it. We're not sort of extracting value from them.
Cool. So, if you could snap your fingers and change one thing about the current blockchain gaming landscape, what would it be and why?
Yeah, I guess the number one thing I would change if I could snap my fingers right now is sort of all the laws and regulations or lack thereof in the space. Obviously governments around the world are like horribly behind in their ability to regulate or do anything with digital assets in general. And it just makes it extremely difficult to do anything in the space, not just blockchain gaming. It means all the blockchain game companies have to spend ungodly amounts of money on lawyers and, just doing all these things. And it's not so much that like, the regulations are even wrong or bad. It's just they don't even exist. So you don't even know what you can or can't do. And there's always this like weird fog over the whole space. We're just trying to make a game, right? This is not a cryptocurrency exchange. This is not like a money laundering thing. There's no way that I even know that could even work in a lot of the games, since everything's so public and transparent. But yet, like, we just have no idea for sure, what can and can't be done. And just, being involved with cryptocurrencies, banks often will not work with any companies that are doing any blockchain stuff, even if it's not, you're not running an exchange that can facilitate any, illegal activity. They don't, there's no nuance to it. It's just like, oh, there's blockchain involved. They don't care if you're a game or what's going on. And, it's hard to get bank support and all these like normal, regular things that businesses take for granted. And it's really a shame. It's really holding the industry back a lot. So that's, I think that's all going to naturally change over time as younger generations take over for older generations in governments. And we see certain governments in different places around the world being much more open and agreeable to this. So it's going to happen, but, governments move a lot more slowly than technology. So I guess that's my answer. If I could change one thing now, it would be that.
Yes, we have no option but just to wait and see how things evolve over the years. So, out of curiosity, this is a curious-based question. Do you think blockchain Web3 games is a worthy contender for Web3 games? Yes.
Right now, I mean, not yet. The experience is just not there, like we talked about. But like I said, sort of that's where the opportunity is. You know, you kind of get in and get involved before they're on equal footing. But like over time, all those problems get solved naturally. Both regulatory problems and tech problems. So I think it's like inevitable. Like people say, like Bitcoin and crypto are inevitable. Like they're just going to keep growing, keep getting better, and keep happening. You know, Web3 games are inevitably going to start competing. You know, and be very similar, like features wise and fun wise, to Web2 games. And at that point, there's sort of no contest. Like, why would you, if you have two games that are like equal in every other way, why would you play one where you get no value out of it versus one where you do participate in the value creation? So right now, you know, definitely not. We're still early, but I have no doubt that we're going to get there.
I have no doubt too. Thank you so much, Matt, for an insightful and exciting conversation. It was so great learning so much, especially about the blockchain and Web3 gaming ecosystem, learning so much about it from you. And that wraps up today's episode of the Web3 Quick Bite podcast. We hope you enjoyed the discussion. If you have any feedback or questions, please reach out on social media or send an email at web3quickbites@gmail.com. And thanks again to our guests for joining us. And thank you, listeners, for tuning in. We'll be back next week with more exciting content, so be sure to subscribe and tune in. Bye.